Okay, Marv Newharth once again. This is chapter 7, video 8, and this is on learning. Just how do we learn? We can look at this from various viewpoints, but the viewpoint that we're going to look at today is from the standpoint of behaviors being reinforced. In other words, we commit a certain, not necessarily commit, but indulge in a certain behavior, and it brings us the reward that we want. We may have a greater tendency to engage in that behavior once again. And that's one aspect. And again, if we find that a certain behavior removes something that we do not want, we may engage in that behavior again when the circumstances warrant it, to get rid of the negative aspect, and that is called negative behavior. Nonetheless, what is interesting about this is we go back to the nature and nurture viewpoints, and the nurture viewpoint says we really don't know. We do not have any innate intelligence. We are a blank slate, and then the environment works on this. Now, 2,000 years ago, Aristotle stated this. And then in the 16 and 1700s, John Locke and David Hume agreed with Aristotle. Now, we have three names and concepts in learning, and I put in parentheses there behaviorism, because that's basically what it is. We had radical behaviorism, which goes back to Skinner, and that was changed to behaviorism, and then it was changed to learning. In other words, learning cannot take place unless that behavior is reinforced. Now, three names associated with this: Ivan Pavlov, J.B. Watson, and B.F. Skinner. We're going to start with Ivan Pavlov. You probably remember him. He was studying the digestive systems of a dog, or the digestive system of a dog, and he noticed he would present meat powder to the dog, or meat, and the dog would start to salivate. Well, after a while, Ivan Pavlov observed that when his assistant came in the room, the dog would start to salivate. Just seeing the individual coming into the room and the expectations of the dog. So Ivan Pavlov went on a little bit further, and he associated a bell each time that the food was presented, and the dog would salivate. Then he would just ring the bell, and the dog would salivate. So he had this as a form of learning. Now, we think, well, what's really the big deal? Well, what is interesting is advertisements are basically based on Ivan Pavlov's slobbering dog. And the group, the audience that the advertising wants to meet is the consumers. Yeah, you and me. I mean, we are told that we don't look good. We are told that our hair is not the right style. We are told that we are wearing the wrong clothing. We're not driving the proper automobile. We are told that our breath stinks. We are told that our teeth are not white enough. But fortunately, they come along with a product and they can correct this. They can give us a beautiful head of hair. They can give us whiter teeth, and they can take all of the unwanted odor away. So this is what advertising does. But what advertising goes a little bit further, and they pair. We'll take in the instance of whiter teeth. They will have an individual there with a beautiful smile, beautiful white teeth. And we look at that and we say, hey, if I would use a product, I would have a beautiful smile like that. That is the pairing that takes place. Or maybe with the automobile. Maybe a person is driving a certain automobile and then he gets into another automobile and he receives or she receives attention from the other sex. So that is the pairing that takes place in this instance. That was Ivan Pavlov. It was called classical conditioning. J.B. Watson was into reinforcement, and one of the individuals associated, or a person study associated with J.B. Watson, was little Albert. And little Albert, I believe, was about 6 months of age. And J.B. Watson was going to condition him to fear white. So they would have something come running out in white, maybe a white rat or whatever he had that was white. And when the infant would see that, might have been older than 6 months. I said, well, could have been a little bit older than 6 months. I'm not quite sure of the age. But anyway, as soon as the infant would see that, they would sneak up behind him with a rod and a hammer, and they would tap that rod, and they would frighten the infant. Okay. So after a while then, the association took place between the white object and the bell, or the loud startling noise. In this case, it was a loud startling noise because it was a hammer on a pipe. And so after a while, the infant would become startled just seeing the white object, because the white object was associated with the pipe and the hammer. And so Watson went on a little bit further, and he stated, he said, you give me some normal youth, young people. And he said, I can make them through rewards and reinforcement. He said, I can make them whatever I want to make them. I can make them a doctor. I can make them turn into a thief, to a beggar, whatever I want. That's how strongly Watson thought about this. Well, Watson wasn't able to carry out his experiments. He was a well-known psychologist at one time, certainly had a lot of potential, but he became a little bit too friendly with his graduate assistant, and he was released from his position at Johns Hopkins. The third name that we have associated with this is B.F. Skinner, and B.F. Skinner is associated with operant conditioning. This is kind of interesting as far as B.F. Skinner is concerned with operant conditioning, because he claimed that everything that we do, or the actions that we have, is based on reinforcement. And at one time, he was going to design a rocket. This was during World War II, design a rocket. And this rocket would be guided by the way a pigeon pressed the keys. Now, rockets are designed, you shoot them at the enemy, the pigeon would be in there pressing the keys, and you kind of wonder if and when the rocket hit its target, it would explode. Now, I don't know really what's happening to the pigeon. Maybe it flew away someplace. I don't know. We never did get into that. And another thing that B.F. Skinner is noted for is he built a conditioning table in which he put his daughter in a controlled environment. Now, if two people are in a restaurant and one eats because he or she likes the food, that's positive. That's a positive reward. If the other one eats because they want to remove hunger pangs, that is a negative reward because we are taking away something that we don't want. A fixed ratio means that it happens every third time, every fourth time, or 10th time. A variable ratio means that it can happen every second time, every fifth time, every 10th time, much like playing a slot machine when a person is gambling. A fixed interval means that it happens every 3 seconds, every 30 seconds. And a variable interval means that it could happen 3 seconds, and then it wouldn't happen again until 60 seconds, and then again until 45 seconds. Now, operant conditioning basically is this, that if we eat a meal and say, oh my word, I'm not going to eat for another week, and go in and sit down in the living room, and all of a sudden we see an ad on TV advertising, we'll say some type of breakfast food, and we'll say, hey, that looks good. I have some in the kitchen. I'm going to go out and get some. The individual can operate on their environment. Albert Bandura, observational learning, and he watched individuals watch violent movies or aggressive TV programs, and those that watch the aggressive TV programs would have a tendency to beat up the Bobo doll more. Now, the Bobo doll is one that, stands up and you push it over and it stands back up, and you push it over and it stands back up. Basically, this could be reflected, and I mentioned this before, with mirrors in the brain. Mirrors in the brain observe what is happening, and they have a tendency to repeat it. Now, this takes care of this. Our next video is on memory. I'm looking forward to it. Hope all is going well. Like I've stated before, don't forget the assignments and all of the other fun things that are in this course.